why you get approval.
Okay.
And actually, you know what, if you want to, yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
Now get Grace coordinated a little bit. You ready?
Go ahead and pass the chair to Dawn on that one, temporary resolution 123, so you can
Anyway.
sign it.
Okay. Just that one.
If you want to do it on the other one, but Tricia said it was okay if we waited for the mayor on that piece.
You don't need it tonight. Okay. So just on the one.
Just on one temporary resolution 23.
We don't have to see it.
Call the Finance Committee meeting to order for Monday, October 11th, 2021. All right, first item I have on tonight's agenda is Resolution 12021. That's a resolution to increase and decrease appropriation within the Transit Fund 2021. This is coming through Public Works. Mr. Schoonover.
123.
I don't know if Paul wants to talk about it. I think we just, I
Yeah,
don't
we'll
remember
talk about
when we discussed it, but we can discuss your change of,
So we're moving $8,800 from salaries because we promoted somebody from salaries to take an operations manager position. So we're taking that money out of salaries and put it in the management line item. So we're just moving somebody to cover the new position between now and the end of the year.
Looks like you wanted to talk about it.
there you go. I was gonna say that too, but you're the guy. So we're gonna ask for suspension because that's already happened, so.
Okay. Any questions on Resolution 12021? Seeing none, we will ask for suspension, and I believe I'm the second on that.
Yep.
All right, sir. So we will suspend on 12021. Next item I have on tonight's agenda is Resolution 12121. That is a resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an engineering agreement for the Upper Hocking Water Pollution Control Facility Expansion Project Design Construction Administration. There's a mouthful. This is coming through water pollution. I do not see Mr. James.
I'm gonna, he's not going to be here tonight.
Okay. All right. Is anyone prepared to talk about this, or?
I'm not prepared to talk about it.
Well, here, you have Denise standing there.
Denise is prepared to talk.
There we go.
about
I
am
Denise is
prepared.
very prepared to talk about it. Denise.
We are rapidly running down the road towards the Upper Hocking Water Pollution Control Facility Expansion Project. So temporary resolution 121-21 is to authorize Service Safety Director for the construction, engineering, resident project inspection, and equipment programming for the project. We don't expect to actually enter into this contract until we receive our loan in March, so we're not in a hurry for this. I just didn't want it to get lost on my desk.
Okay. Questions for Denise? So your timing on this, I believe, is 3 readings.
Yes.
And Mr. Hall, you'll introduce it tonight, but
Be happy
I
to
don't
do
know
that.
how she wants to keep the record keeping. She will probably keep you, or maybe keep you the primary, I don't know. But
Teresa,
let's,
what's your pleasure on that?
The second could go ahead and say first reading.
Okay, that's fine. Yes.
That would be fine.
Okay, so keep Mr. James on top, and then Mr. Hall will be the
Yeah,
second.
that would be fine if that's not an issue with anyone.
Not an issue at all. So we go 3 readings. Does anyone have any questions for Denise on this? Very good. We will go 3 readings on 12121. I imagine you're not going very far.
Nope.
Next item I have is Resolution 12221. That's a resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids for the Upper Hocking Water Pollution Control Facility Phase 2 expansion project, again coming through water pollution. Mrs. Teener, you're the second, if you'd like to defer
Yes,
to.
I'll have Denise speak to that also.
All right. Going further down that road, this authorizes Service Safety Director to advertise for bids. This is a $27 million project, so we want to be able to give the contractors enough time to get in, look at the plant, deal with the equipment, figure out their supply chain issues. So we want to advertise this project at Thanksgiving. We'll open bids the end of January. We've got holidays in there to deal with too, and a couple plant visits that we know contractors will want to get in and look at the plant. So we have to bid this project before we finalize the loan.
Questions? Seeing none, timing,
2 readings.
2 readings, and you are the second, Mr. James is the primary, correct?
Yes.
Very good. All right, thank you, Denise.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate that. So 2 readings on 122-21. Next item I have is Resolution 123-21. I'm sorry, I don't have that one. That's Mr. Ooh, I'll handle that one. The next item I have is 124-21. That's a resolution to decrease in appropriations in the general fund 1001 for use by the police department. And I see Chief Pilar is there. Chief Pilar.
Good evening. We found that there was a problem with the software and budgeting, where even though we set up civilian employees, it did not post to the final budget and health insurance, and that was about in August, I think, when the auditor noticed that we were going to be short in that for that health insurance. It just didn't post to the final numbers, even though it was done in the back portion of that. So at the same time, I was looking, we didn't ask for additional money to cover our salary increase with the raises, and we were still going through a fact-finding on the supervisors. So, and we ended up negotiating a settlement on back pay for them as part of their contract that they settled. And then I also looked ahead, and we had 2 people that opted out of our hiring process that are certified that actually contacted us, has to get back in. So there's an opportunity where maybe I could hire 4 by the end of the year. But to do that, I have to have FTO pay for training, because they get paid an extra amount for training, and then the salaries and benefits for those subjects. And that's what this money will cover, is being able to hire those 4. We had one's already scheduled to be hired, and I think I could have done 1 anyway. But to pick up these other 3, I think is going to be important, because we have 3 probably scheduled to retire in January.
Okay. So looking at this, you'll see in section 1, that's where we're fixing the settlement from fact finding with the supervisors. And then in section 3, which is where we're allocating money for health insurance, but also the potential employee salaries. Any questions for the chief on these?
I have a question.
Sure.
With those hirings, where will that bring us with respect to where we want to be?
Well, we want to be at 73. I've got 6 scheduled to retire next year. So if I can hire 4 by the end of the year, then we're only going to be 2 under by the end of next year if I don't hire anymore. I think realistically, I can probably might be able to hire 12 with the new test, if we can get them. And that would put us at 66. And then next year should be the end of a large wave of retirements. Like I said, I have 6 scheduled to retire. After that, it drops to 2 a year. And I think the year after that's when they're actually going to be able to maybe reach that 73. I don't think it's we're going to budget for it and push for it. But I mean, you want quality candidates too. So I just don't think we're going to take every candidate that comes our way. So.
Thank you.
Further questions? And then, of course, anything that's not spent will just drop into the carryover at the end of the year.
Yeah, and a large portion of that is, because I started looking, when I looked at the budget, we have 339 unused holidays that guys have to be compensated for. Now, a lot of that's just lack of manpower to get guys the time off. I would assume a lot of those holidays are going to get burnt up by the end of the year, but I really have no way to predict how much is going to get used and how much is going to get cashed in. And that's where almost $100,000 of that is in that holiday compensation. But I would assume that number is going to be closer to 60, 50 maybe, if we can get guys off.
Okay, well, we would be covered at this point, which is a good thing. All right, seeing no further questions. I notice this is set for 3 readings, is that correct?
As far as hiring goes, I could do it in 3, because the earliest we're going to hire is October 23rd, because I'm kind of pacing them out if we can get them through the backgrounds. I don't know exactly when the insurance gets paid.
Yeah, when do you run out of money?
So we're good with at least 2.
Two readings, because they got 1 more month for having for health insurance, and then they were.
Okay.
I just thought it was 3 was too many, actually.
Well, yeah, it seems like we're getting to the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I just thought maybe
All right,
1 or
so,
2 or whatever.
yep, so we will do 2 on that. So we will do 2 readings. Christina, you'll be the second on that, please.
Yes.
And I think we're good. Thank you, Chief. We appreciate it. So 2 readings on 124-21. Next item I have is Resolution 125-21. That's a resolution to decrease appropriations in the general fund, specifically for the certified building department. Mr. Davis is here to enlighten us.
Yeah, we have one longtime employee who unexpectedly decided to retire about a month ago. She turned in her notice, and that, of course, was not in our budget, so.
That's about as straightforward as, does anybody have any questions for Jeff? We do need suspension on this to get the funding in place prior to retirement, correct?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Bowett, you'll be the second on that one?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jeff. We appreciate you coming all the way down here for
Thank
15
you.
seconds of mic time. So,
I'm not sure it was 15.
yeah, it wasn't very much. All right, so we are suspending on 125-21. Next item I have on tonight's agenda is Resolution 126-21. That is a resolution to appropriate in the wastewater fund 6,004. Coming through water pollution is Mr. James via Mr. Hall. And we'll let Mr. Nixon enlighten us.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of council, we've been talking about this for several meetings. This is to pay down the 2012 bonds. It'll allow us to take care of a higher interest debt service and get that paid down. And we have the funding in the 6004 fund to handle it. So we just decided to start eliminating some of this higher interest debt as we're going to be obtaining luckily some more low interest debt as we move forward with the Upper Hocking.
Price of progress, right?
That's right.
Questions for Mr. Nixon? Seeing none, Mr. Hall, 2 readings, I believe?
Yes, please.
Okay, and you'll be the second, but you'll read it tonight for us. Thank you, sir. 2 readings on 126-21. The next items I have are ordinances 36 and 37. They are my 2 least favorite ordinances on the planet, only because we have to read the doggone things 3 times, well, the clerk does, actually. But what they are the annual ordinances for the developer notes and the Edie Road TIF. And I think this will keep going long after I'm gone from council. But this is an annual pieces that have to be reapproved by council for the TIF and for the small repayment of debt that occurs every year. Are there any questions on that? Both of them are 3 readings, and.
Feel free to say 2 if you know.
Sold. 2. Let's make them 2.
You shall receive.
You get,
Awesome.
we have a heart here tonight, so we will go 2 readings on ordinances 36 and 37, which are both the TIF ordinances that are.
Is there a rule that if it says appurtenances, she has to read it 3 times?
That's gonna be on my tombstone, you know that.
Even if you don't put it on there, we may come and.
We're gonna spray paint it on
That's
there.
it. We have a pretty good sign department down at the LDOT. They can put anything out there.
Yeah, they do.
So, all right. Are there any departmental updates this evening? Seeing none, I will defer to President Uhl for tonight's meeting prep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a couple of pieces coming through tonight. Temporary Resolution 114-21 is an amended resolution with corrected council and finance committee dates. The clerk was trying to make us meet on a Saturday, and so we've got that resolved, so
So
thank
we'll
you.
go back to
Mr.
3
Matlin.
readings on.
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Matlin called me out on it, so we had to fix it.
Things are nice in April. You
Yeah.
guys should do it.
Yeah, so that's what 114-21 amended is that addresses that. We then have temporary resolution 123-21, a resolution of consent for preliminary legislation for upgrade and retrofit for LED with ODOT coming through Mr. Schoonover's committee. Mr. Schoonover?
Mr. Nolan sent out an email a few days back explaining this as a map. It's really just us giving permission for ODOT to replace those light bulbs, and it's all on the bypass, so
At no charge, right?
at no charge. So
Yeah.
we just gotta give permission. So we're gonna ask for suspension so they can get it done.
So suspension tonight with Mr. Stoughton as the second, and I'll just mention the mayor is out of town, and there's some thought that Mr. Nolan needs this more immediately. So Mr. McDaniel, I'll be passing the chair to you tonight so that you can lead that piece of legislation through the process, so that then you can sign as president, and then I will sign as acting mayor, and we can get that over to Mr. Nolan. Other than that, we have temporary ordinance 35-21 to adopt guidelines for mural artwork in the city coming through code enforcement. Mr. Schoonover.
I'm taking this piece just to do first reading for Mr. Matlin being gone. If Mr. Ullum wants to talk about this piece, that would be great.
Yeah, happy to. This is one that's been talked about and worked on for some time of just, that balance between art and, maintaining our historic Lancaster district. It's been something, as you can see, it's like we've had more and more murals going up. And so this is one that, we apologize, I think we had it as one reading and it should have been two. We're just trying to, if we could, do two readings on it so that we can get this passed and get it in place for both sides, one for the members of the Historic Lancaster Commission when, these types of projects are brought before them with regard to murals downtown. And then also for the folks or whatever that are planning those things so that everybody kind of has, transparency and everything on the guidelines and the things that need to be in place in order for those to be approved or to happen. So, as you've seen around town, we've had kind of a mini little explosion of murals around town, and I think it seems to be a trend that's going to continue for a period of time. So, this just helps us out by having some, guidelines and things like that to follow.
Thank you, Mr. Ullum. Anything further, Mr. Schoonover?
Nope, we're just doing two readings on that.
Okay, so first two readings tonight with Mr. Hall as the second. Okay. That's all I have this evening for tonight's meeting prep. I'll toss back to the chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are there any other items for finance this evening? Do we have any executive sessions this evening?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that an executive session is needed to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1. Those that need to attend are all elected officials and the city service director.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I need a vote from all on finance. Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
And I also vote yes, we are in executive session. So we have a motion to return to the regular order of business from an executive session. Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. And I vote yes. We are in the normal order of business. I now will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
We are adjourned. It is 6:30 on the dot.
The regular meeting of Lancaster City Council will begin at 6:40. I'd like to ask everyone to kind of, I guess, get up in here, if that's where you want to do it, Mr. Stoughton, and grab a picture so that we don't have to deal with it at the end. And this is for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So that's why we asked you to wear purple, and want to see if we can grab a picture real quick. So 6:40 is when the meeting will begin. Let's all kind of gather in and try to get this done.
Life is unpredictable. That's why estate planning is important. Estate planning provides you comfort and peace of mind knowing that you're taking care of your loved ones and ensuring your legacy lives on just as you envisioned. You lived a life that is beautifully and uniquely yours. You deserve an estate planning attorney who understands that and creates a plan as unique as you and in the best interest of your loved ones. You deserve the local, trusted, experienced attorneys at Dagger Law.
There is no place like Lancaster, Ohio, and Fairfield County, and like you, I am proud to call them home. As a longtime resident of Lancaster and graduate of Lancaster High School, this community is important to me, and I want to provide superior customer service, professionalism, integrity, and honesty at the Connor Insurance Agency. I am committed to supporting local programs and projects through my volunteer work and board membership with several organizations. It has been a great honor to work with all the first responders throughout Lancaster, Fairfield County, and the state of Ohio to put on Kids and Cops Day, to be a part of Shop with a Cop alongside the Lancaster Police Department and JFS, and to help Lancaster Public Education Foundation raise funds to support our local public schools and teachers. These men and women work hard to protect and support our community, and I would like to take this moment to say thank you for all they do. My goal as a business owner and insurance agent is to provide my clients with the most appropriate services and coverage for their needs at a competitive rate. As an independent agent, I have several carriers to choose from so I can customize your insurance coverage to fit your needs and desires. I strive to make sure there are no gaps in your coverage that could be harmful, and just as important, that you are not overinsured. I look forward to serving your insurance needs now and in the future. At Connor Insurance, we are here to serve you by protecting what is important to you. Please contact my office at 740-654-2848 for a full list of services and carriers, or visit my website, ConnorInsuranceAgency.com.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
it delayed?
Because Dad said.
Good evening. Welcome to Lancaster City Council. Please join me in a word of prayer. Father, we're thankful for this day once again, thankful for the opportunity to be here together to do the work that is set before us. May you help us as we rightly represent those who have put us in these positions. May you continue to be with first responders and those who are putting themselves in harm's way in our city and our state, across our country and around the world. We pray that you would continue to bless us and keep us. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I hereby call this meeting of Lancaster City Council to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Here.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes, here.
Mr. James? Mr. Matlin? Mr. McDaniel?
Here.
Mr. Schoonover?
Here.
Mr. Stoughton?
Here.
And Mrs. Teener?
Here.
Let the record reflect that 7 of 9 members of council are in attendance tonight. Ms. Teener?
Mr. President, I would like to excuse Councilman Jack Matlin and Tom James from tonight's meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to excuse Mr. Matlin and Mr. James from tonight's meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Reading and disposing of the journal.
I'd like to present the regular meeting minutes dated September 27th, 2021.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the journal.
Second.
Motion and a second to receive and file the journal. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Reports of city officials.
Email dated September 27th, 2021 regarding the 2022 council meeting submitted by Mr. Matlin. Email dated September 30th, 2021 regarding service agenda submitted by Mrs. Teener. Email dated September 30th, 2021 regarding Domestic Violence Awareness Month submitted by President Ohl. Email dated October 6th, 2021 regarding October the 11th meeting submitted by Mr. Matlin. Series of emails regarding October the 11th meeting submitted by Mrs. Kreitz. Email dated October 7th, 2021 regarding October 11th meeting submitted by Assistant Law Director Stephanie Hall. Email dated October 7th, 2021 regarding Public Works Agenda submitted by Mr. Schoonover. And finally, an email dated October the 11th, 2021 regarding Finance Agenda submitted by Mr. Stoughton.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of city officials.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file reports of city officials. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Are there any communications this evening?
There are none to be presented.
Are there any special presentations or awards?
There are none to be presented.
Are there any petitions or memorials?
There are none to be presented.
During this time, Lancaster City Council sets time aside to allow the voters and taxpayers of the city to address us on any item or issue they would like. Given the record-breaking crowd we have tonight, I'll just pause there and ask if anyone would like to address City Council this evening. Jan? No? Sir? No one? Okay. Well, we will move ahead, and thank you both for being here tonight. Reports of standing committees.
Finance Committee meetings dated October the 11th and the special meeting dated October the 1st, 2021 submitted by Mr. Stoughton.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of standing committees.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file reports of standing committees. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. There are reports of special committees.
There are none to be presented.
We have no public hearings this evening, so we'll move to the reading of resolutions, beginning with the third reading of temporary resolution 110-21.
A resolution accepting the applications of financial institutions and designating depositories as public funds, offered by Mr. Stoughton and seconded by Mrs. Kreitz.
Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record. Resolution temporary 11021, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 110-21. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code, the city is required to enter into new financial institution depository agreements every 5 years. So this is our 5-year action.
Very good. Thank you. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 110-21 passes 7-0. We now have second reading on a series of resolutions, beginning with temporary resolution 114-21.
A resolution scheduling Lancaster City Council meetings for 2022, offered by Mr. Hall and seconded by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. Hall.
2 of 3, and there is a minor change to the agenda in the April calendar.
Yeah, we need to make a motion to amend.
Okay, all right. Then I would like to make a motion to amend temporary resolution 114-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to amend temporary resolution 114-21 and replace it with temporary resolution 114-21 star. Any further discussion, Mr. Hall?
Yeah, just real quickly, there was a minor error in the April agenda, so date was moved from 23rd to 25th, and that's the only material change.
Very good. Other discussion? We're voting now on the motion to amend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 114-21 has been amended. We now have before us temporary resolution 114-21 star. What is your pleasure, Mr. Hall?
I guess second of 3, please.
Second reading then on temporary resolution 114-21 star. Temporary resolution 115-21.
A resolution authorizing the law director to negotiate and enter into a contract with the city of Pickerington for prosecution of cases arising from criminal and other offenses that occur in the city of Pickerington within Fairfield County, Ohio, and to accept payment, offered by Mr. Stoughton and seconded by Mrs. Bobbitt.
Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of resolution temporary 11521, please.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 115-21. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
I'm going to sound like a broken record tonight because we're going to do this 3 times. But the law director goes out annually and makes contracts with Pickerington, Reynoldsburg, and the Fairfield County Commission to prosecute cases as required by the Ohio Revised Code.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 7-0. Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council pass and gross and enter upon the written record resolution temporary 11521, please.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 115-21. Further discussion, Mr. Stoughton?
No, thank you.
Discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 115-21 passes 7-0. Temporary resolution 116-21.
A resolution authorizing the law director to negotiate and enter into a contract with the city of Reynoldsburg for prosecution of cases arising from criminal and other offenses that occur in the city of Reynoldsburg within Fairfield County, Ohio, and to accept payment, offered by Mr. Stoughton and seconded by Mrs. Kreitz.
Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of resolution temporary 11621, please.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 116-21. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton?
Same thing I said on 115.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Oops. Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 7-0. Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council pass and gross and enter upon the written record resolution temporary 11621, please.
Second?
A motion and a second to pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 116-21. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
Nothing further.
Discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 116-21 passes 7-0. Temporary resolution 117-21.
A resolution authorizing the law director to negotiate and enter into a contract with the Fairfield County Commissioners for prosecution of cases arising from criminal and other offenses that occur in the unincorporated areas and in villages within Fairfield County, Ohio, and to accept payment, offered by Mr. Stoughton and seconded by Mrs. Bobbitt.
Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of resolution temporary 11721, please.
Yes.
We have a motion and a
Yes. Second.
good enough.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it's
Motion
my
and a
second.
second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 117-21. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
Yes, what I had referenced earlier, this is the final one.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion to suspend? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Second. I'm kidding. Yes.
She's on fire.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 7-0. Mr. Stoughton.
Ready, Mel?
I'm ready.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council pass and gross and enter upon the written record resolution temporary 11721, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 117-21. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you.
Discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 117-21 passes 7-0. Temporary resolution 118-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids for the Lawrence Street Central Fuel Depot relocation, offered by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. James.
Mr. Schoonover.
Second and 3 readings, please.
Second reading on temporary resolution 118-21. We now have first reading on a series of resolutions, beginning with temporary resolution 120-21.
A resolution to decrease and increase appropriations in the Transit Fund 2021, offered by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. Stoughton.
Mr. Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third readings of temporary resolution 12021.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third readings of temporary resolution 120-21. Discussion, Mr. Schoonover.
We're just moving some funds from one account to the other to cover the difference in pay for a new operations manager in public transit.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 7-0. Mr. Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 12021.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 120-21. Discussion, Mr. Schoonover.
Yes, sir.
Discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 120-21 passes 7-0. Temporary resolution 121-21.
A resolution to authorize the Service Safety Director to enter into an engineering agreement for the Upper Hocking Water Pollution Control Facility Expansion Project Design Construction Administration, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mr. Hall.
Mr. Hall.
Yes, on behalf of Mr. James, one of 3, please.
First of 3 readings on temporary resolution 121-21. Temporary resolution 122-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids for the Upper Hocking Water Pollution Control Facility Phase 2 Expansion Project, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mrs. Teener.
Mrs. Teener.
First of 2 readings.
First of 2 readings on temporary resolution 122-21. I now surrender the chair to President Pro Tem, Mr. McDaniel.
Please read the next resolution.
A resolution of consent for preliminary legislation for the upgrade retrofit of high and low mass HPS lighting to LED lighting, PID number 112676, offered by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. Stoughton.
Mr. Schoonover.
Well, I missed the one before that. Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second, and third reading temporary resolution 12321.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of resolution temporary numbered 123-21. Discussion.
Yeah, we're asking for suspension. This is an ODOT project. Basically, just need our permission. There's no money involved with us. And then we've done the little move around the table so we can get it signed by Mr. Wool so we can get it to ODOT in time.
Any further discussion on motion to suspend? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Motion to pass or suspend passes 7-0. Mr. Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 12321.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 123-21. Mr. Schoonover.
Nothing further.
Any further discussion on motion to pass? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 123-21 passes 7-0. I will now turn the chair back over to the president.
Thank you, Mr. McDaniel. We now have before us temporary resolution 124-21.
A resolution to decrease and increase appropriations to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and to amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor and the general fund 1001, offered by Mr. Stoughton and seconded by Mrs. Kreitz.
Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. This appropriation is for the police department. This will be the first of two readings, please.
First of two readings on temporary resolution 124-21, temporary resolution 125-21.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and to amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor. Wait a minute, is that what I just read? Okay, I'm sorry. And the county auditor, in the general fund 1001, same preamble basically, offered by Mr. Stoughton and seconded by Mrs. Bobbit.
Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of resolution temporary 125-21, please.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 125-21. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. There was an unexpected retirement in the certified building department. Therefore, we need to appropriate monies to do the retirement payout, hence suspension tonight.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 7-0. Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council pass engross and enter upon the written record resolution temporary 125-21, please.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass engross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 125-21. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
Nothing further.
Discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 125-21 passes 7-0. Temporary resolution 126-21.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate with the county auditor and the wastewater fund 6004, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mr. Hall.
Mr. Hall.
Yes, Mr. President, on behalf of Mr. James, one of two, please.
Very good. First of two readings on temporary resolution 126-21. Are there further resolutions to come before Lancaster City Council this evening? If not, we'll move to the reading of ordinances, beginning with the second reading of temporary ordinance 34-21.
An ordinance to repeal and replace Lancaster Codified Ordinance Part 11, Planning and Zoning Code, Title III, Zoning and Property Restrictions, Chapter 1157, Board of Zoning Appeals, Section 1157.03, Proceedings of the Board of Codified Ordinances of the City of Lancaster, offered by Mr. Matlin, seconded by Mr. Schoonover.
Mr. Schoonover.
Second reading, please.
Second of three readings on temporary ordinance 34-21. We now have first reading on temporary ordinance 35-21.
An ordinance approving and adopting the addendum to the Historic Lancaster Commission's design guidelines for the purpose of establishing rules and guidelines for the mural artwork within the Lancaster Historic District and declaring an emergency. Offered by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. Hall.
Mr. Schoonover.
First of two readings, please.
First of two readings on temporary ordinance 35-21. Temporary ordinance 36-21.
An ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of revenue notes in the aggregate principal amount of $931,202.59 to pay costs of improving Edie Road, Memorial Drive, and Michaels Way by grading, widening, paving, curbing, and improving bridges and railroad crossings, relocating utilities, installing sidewalks, traffic signals and signs, and water, sanitary, and stormwater lines and facilities, together with all necessary appurtenances thereto, and declaring an emergency. Offered by Mr. Stoughton and seconded by Mrs. Kreitz.
Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. This will be the first of two readings, please.
First of two readings on temporary ordinance 36-21, temporary ordinance 37-21.
An ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of a revenue note in the aggregate principal amount of $288,836.61, to reimburse Flagstar Bank, FSB, for a draw on a letter of credit in connection with the cost of improving Edie Road, Memorial Drive, and Michaels Way by grading, widening, paving, curbing, and improving bridges and railroad crossings, relocating utilities and installing sidewalks, traffic signals and signs, and water, sanitary, and stormwater lines and facilities, together with all necessary appurtenances thereto, and declaring an emergency. Offered by Mr. Stoughton, seconded by Mrs. Bobbitt.
Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of two readings, please.
First of two readings on temporary ordinance 37-21. Are there any further ordinances to come before Lancaster City Council this evening? If not, is there any action on tabled legislation tonight? Seeing none, we'll move to unfinished business. Does anyone have any unfinished business this evening they'd like to discuss? We will then move to new business. Does anyone have new business they'd like to discuss this evening? Mr. Ullum.
I was just gonna put out there, I believe that the mayor submitted to all of you the resume of Attorney Jim Edwards to fill one of the spots on the Housing Council. I think his resume or whatever was attached, Jim was a assistant county prosecutor for many, many years, and then also maintained a private law practice with his wife here in town, and is now retired but serves currently on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and has graciously offered to serve on our Housing Council as well. So I think I have it all right.
Yes.
All right, is there a motion then to appoint Mr. Edwards to the Housing Council?
I'd like to make that motion.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Jim Edwards to our Housing Council. Any discussion? Need a voice vote? Or?
Yep.
Okay, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to appoint Mr. Edwards passes 7-0. Please pass along our congratulations and thanks to Mr. Edwards for his willingness to serve.
Thank you, President Hope.
All right, any further new business? Yes, Ms. Bobbitt.
Tonight, we all got a new piece there in regards to historical and artwork in downtown, so I think it's appropriate to congratulate the Sherman Rotary Club, Krista Mooney, and Jason Annecy on the mural in Center Alley, and we all need to go down there and take a look at it if you haven't already, because it's beautiful.
I agree.
Yes, it is. Very nice. Good, thank you, Ms. Bobbitt. Yes, certainly worthy of recognition, the amount of time and energy and money that the Sherman Rotary Club has put into downtown over the last several years is significant and is very appreciated, so thank you. Good, other new business this evening. I'll mention just a couple things briefly for those who maybe didn't see finance. Around the table, you see everyone in purple tonight. That is for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so I wanted to say thank you. We got a picture. We'll send that off to those organizations that are involved. And want to say thank you to the organizations, the professionals, those who consistently support and assist victims of domestic violence. We appreciate what they do here in our city. I'll mention just briefly, I was asked to talk about the blood drive that's coming up, and you see the signs all over this building, and would encourage you, if you give blood, to make plans to come on Tuesday, November 9th from 8:30 to 2:30 right here. Deb Julian's putting this together as she always does. This is for Lancaster City employees, Lancaster City council members, anyone else who would like to do it, and not only for those folks. So anyone who wants to give blood that day, you can go online, you can register, you can come and be a part. Deb wants to make sure they meet and exceed their goals, so please make sure you check out information about our city blood drive Tuesday, November 9th from 8:30 to 2:30 right here in this room. I'll also just briefly mention, the clerk may have to help me out with the date, but just to put it on calendars as we're entering in soon to the holiday season, our swearing-in ceremony is Wednesday, September 29th at Olivedale from 6 to 8. And we know we'll have one person departing who won't be with us, Mr. Hall. We certainly appreciate your service to City Council. For the rest,
You said September.
well, I meant December. Did I say September?
Yes.
Yeah, but it's
I didn't even hear that. I heard December.
it's December. Yeah, it's December 29th from 6 to 8 at Olivedale. And so each of you who will be elected are invited to come and be a part of that. And that's something that's typically hosted by the council president. And invite your family and your friends. And we'll have more information about who you want to swear you in and what the program will look like as we get a little closer. But mark your calendars now to be a part of the citywide swearing-in ceremony. With that, are there any other items for new business this evening? If not, we'll ask that the clerk read our announcement of scheduled meetings.
I can't believe we only have 4 meetings left this year.
4.
That's just crazy. The next meeting is October 25th. The meeting following is November 8th. Both meetings here in council chambers at 6:30 p.m. Upcoming committee meetings for the next 30 days. Water pollution, October 13th, 8 a.m. at the City Hall 1897 Conference Room. Finance, October 25th at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. Safety, November 5th at 7:30 a.m. City Hall 1897 Conference Room. Finance, November 8th at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. Water pollution control, November 10th at 8 a.m. in the City Hall 1897 Conference Room. And finally, law, November 10th at 9:30 a.m. at the City Hall 1897 Conference Room.
Very good. Thank you very much. Are there any bills?
There's one bill payable to PNC for publication of legislation in the MNCO for $283.40.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to pay the bill.
Second.
A motion and a second to pay the bill. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I assume no one was going to vote no to pay the bill, so I just moved right on there. Is there a need for an executive session this evening? If not, a motion to adjourn is in order.
Mr. President, I'd like to make that motion. We adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you all very much. We are adjourned. Please remember to sign your legislation. And as we kind of wind down the year, if you have committee meetings, please, as quickly as possible, get your minutes to the clerk so we can get those filed before the end of the year. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Making sure and analytics of those sitting down here